Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second online Active School Network. Hopefully most of you know me. I'm Wendy Newton. I'm Head of Children and Young People at Active Surrey. We've got other members of the Active Schools team who will be involved in the session, and all of our contact details and all of the information shared will be issued to you afterwards for any follow-ups that you may need. Just to do some sort of virtual housekeeping while we're waiting for other people to join, we will be recording today's session and the link will be shared with all delegates. We're also going to be testing some breakout rooms today, which will also be recorded, but they won't be shared in the final recording. The best practice from those breakout rooms will be shared via something called Padlet, which is a kind of online pinboard for those of you who are familiar with it. If we can ask for you to remain on mute, entirely optional whether you want your camera on or off for the majority of the session. When we put you into breakout rooms later, obviously we would ask that you turn your cameras on and take yourselves off mute for that, because that will be an interactive chat session. Can we also just ask for you to, this might be a bit tech heavy for some of you, but if you can do it, it'll be really helpful for us. If you can change your profile name so that we can see who you are and which school you're from. We kind of need to know this in some cases if you've logged in from a different device in order for us to put you into breakout rooms later on. We'll be using the chat feed throughout the session. So again, please put any questions, comments, queries into that chat feed. There may be a slight pause or delay on the answer coming through, but they will all be answered for you. If you want to have a little practice with the chat feed now, you can put your name and school in so we can see who's here and other schools can see who's here. I'm just gonna give it just another minute or so, just for a few more people to log in, and then we're going to kick off the session with a short video. So if I can just remind people again, if they can mute themselves for this part of the session, because any background noise will interfere. Okay, we'll kick off then with a short video just to start.
In my day, I couldn't wait to leave the classroom and go and play football and run around. My name is Imogen Fryer. I was born and raised in Hackney. I am a primary school teacher for Homely Primary School, which is the school I went to when I was a child. On your mark! Get set! Go! I love working at this primary school. Often, children haven't got any role models who are running around or who are playing. As a teacher, I am that person for them. I think it's important to teach them everything, and one of the things they need to learn is how to be happy. Without exercise, I don't think you can truly be happy. I try and get the children to move during the day. You don't need to be an expert to let your kids move. Any teacher can inspire kids to be more active, and it's easy to do. It's fun for the kids, but it's also rewarding for me. It brings me enjoyment and satisfaction seeing the change I bring into these kids' lives. There are so many benefits to being active, especially for children. They are more able to focus in class, so they perform better academically. They gain confidence, so they are able to socialise better with children. You can't work with kids and not be happy. Teaching is so important for me. I can't imagine doing anything else now. Are you ready to play?
Okay, so we thought that video was just a nice way to kickstart today's session. Obviously, majority of you that are on the call know how important physical activity is, so we don't need to drum that message home to you, but hopefully we're going to provide you with lots of information today that's going to help you to instill that within your schools, and a lot of information as well that you will find useful to share perhaps with senior leadership teams, especially at the moment if you're struggling to implement PE, school sport and physical activity in your schools. So you can see today's session outcomes on the screen there and the things we're going to run through. As always, we've got an awful lot of information to share with you. So apologies in advance for it being slight information overload, but we have been bombarded in the last week or so, and certainly since we've gone into this second lockdown period, with information that we wanted to share with you. So we're going to go through some of it relatively quickly and rapidly, but as I said at the start, you will receive a recording of this session and you will receive all of the slides and various resources, so you can refer back to them. Okay, so going to move on to the first section, which is recent updates around PE and sports premium funding. Some of you may have seen them. If you have, great, but we just wanted to just remind you of the kind of key messages that have come out with particular reference to the reporting and the underspend. So PE and sports premium funding is fairly flexible already, and the existing criteria and the 5 key indicators for that are still current, as are the 3 main things that you are not allowed to spend the funding on. In terms of underspend, many schools have got underspend from the last academic year, obviously with schools being closed for part of the spring and summer term. There are some clear guidelines now about when you need to spend that funding and the fact that you need to report on the spending of that funding. So the deadline for spending any underspend from 2019-20 is the 31st of March, and there is an expectation from DfE that you will report that on your website. So just want to raise with you as well that there is a new reporting template, and that is going to be made available to you. It's online anyway, so you can Google it, you can find it quite easily yourselves. The dates for the payments for this current academic year you can see there on the screen, and just a reminder of the online reporting requirements. So you've technically got 2 deadlines to do reporting this year. So 31st of March being for the underspend, and then 31st of July at the end of the academic year for your entire spending plan and reporting for this academic year that we're currently in. Again, that reporting template is a guideline, but it is the recommended one. If you have a different version, that's fine, but you need to make sure that it does detail all of the information that is requested in there. You'll hopefully all know by now that you have to report on your swimming spend and some percentages and statistics that in terms of your impact around swimming. The latter part of the network is going to cover some top tips that have just been shared by DfE, AFP and YST. And we'll go through those individually and we'll provide you with solutions around each of those areas. But they are essentially the 7 top tips, the 7 focus areas for you to focus your PE and sports premium funding on. So just our usual contextual slides of statistics for you. Again, these might be useful to you to share within your schools, with your staff, the current picture around physical activity. The 60 minutes a day, 30 minutes responsibility in school still stands. In terms of active live survey, Surrey is still performing higher above national average, but still not quite as high as perhaps we would like when you look at some of those statistics. And then of course the recent findings from the Youth Sport Trust about the impacts of COVID. And I'm sure you are all seeing the impacts of that on a day-to-day basis with your pupils. But I guess one of the things that we want to drive home today from the network is just how important PESPA really is right now, probably more important than ever, but then we would say that we're slightly biased, but really, really important for those young people who have been very adversely affected by COVID. And hopefully you're all on the same page as us in terms of the impact that physical activity has on mental well-being. Some nice infographics from Sport England around young people's interest in physical activity. So again, just things to think about in terms of your offer. Young people are interested in being physically active if the offer is right. So again, something that you may want to share with colleagues. So despite the impacts of COVID, we still know that this is true and that young people do naturally want to be active and have a positive relationship with physical activity. Wider impacts of PESPA, again, you probably all are aware of this, but again, something that you may want to share with your schools. We love this graphic of the impact of physical activity on the brain, and you don't need to be a scientist to work out what that means in terms of concentration levels within your classrooms, which also obviously link with behaviour. General statement, I think, that we're probably again all in agreement with is that active pupils are more successful in their attainment and achievements as a general rule. But much more so in today's landscape, again, the impacts of physical activity on mental well-being and creating more rounded, healthy individuals. And 9 out of 10 teachers apparently think that being active improves behaviour and attainment. So all the more reason to make your schools as active as possible, albeit with restrictions at the moment, which obviously we're going to focus on a little bit today. So in terms of what you're doing in your schools at the moment and what you are and aren't allowed to do, at the last network in the summer, we shared the physical activity guidelines that the government had published. They have recently been updated, which you will be well aware of. If you don't know, it was literally just released this week. There has been a further update around extracurricular activities. So it's important to note this because I know there has been a lot of confusion in schools as to what they can and can't do, and there has been a rewritten message that's come out via the Youth Sport Trust from the government guidelines. So just very briefly, the measures that were in place before still stand in terms of flexibility of how PESPA is provided in line with whatever system controls you have in your school. Keeping pupils in groups, cleaning equipment, etc. Team sports, there is a bit more guidance around this now, but obviously with us being in a second lockdown, that has again kind of been put on hold. So it's all intra activity for you within schools. Inter-competition is again in line with grassroots sports, but we know that not many schools are taking part in inter-school competitions, certainly not at this current time. Outdoor sports and outdoor learning should very much be prioritised. We've got a section on outdoor learning a little bit later on. And also you are still obviously able to work with external coaches for curricular activities, but again, needs to be safe to do so. Extracurricular activities, just to clarify the change from the government in terms of that. The original wording, I think, was that they shouldn't run unless they are for childcare, wraparound care to enable parents to carry on working, etc. But the new guideline says that schools should continue to provide extracurricular sport as long as they can do so in a safe way. So you need to keep young people in their bubbles. Extracurricular clubs should not take place if they're bringing together groups of young people who would not otherwise be spending time together. And obviously schools are not going to be asked to prove that their schools are for wraparound care purposes, which I think is some of the details that came out that were misinterpreted perhaps in the original details. Okay, so in terms of what you're doing currently in your schools, we're aware from the research that the likes of Youth Sport Trust have done that there is a real drop in the PESPA offer within some schools at the moment because obviously of the restrictions that you're facing. And a lot of cautiousness, I think, has been taking place. I'm not entirely sure that it's as bad in your schools as it was previously. We would hope not, but hopefully we're going to share, or we're going to facilitate some sessions that are going to enable you to share best practice on this between yourselves so that perhaps you can overcome some of these barriers. So I'm now going to hand over to Ali, who is going to do a little bit of online interactivity with you. So fingers crossed that this is going to work tech-wise.
I'm unmuting now, but can everyone see the screen that now says go to menti.com? So if Wendy, maybe you can nod your head if it's working for you or somebody else. Fantastic. So just like the instruction says at the top, if that's all right, if you can get your phone or open up a browser on your website and type in menti.com, and you'll see a code that's listed at the top there. And once you put that code in, I know some of you are familiar with Menti from some of the courses we've run before, you should see that question pop up on your screen. So we're asking you, just to get those breakout rooms started in a few minutes, if you can tell us what your 3 biggest challenges are in delivering PE, school sport and physical activity. Now, we appreciate it might be different for different parts, but if you can kind of share your general ideas, and we've asked you for 3. So as you do that, and as you start pressing enter on your phones or internet browser, they'll start flashing up on the screen. If you haven't got any questions, by all means, feel free to use the chat box, and we'll try and answer those as we go.
Ali, people are having an issue with seeing Mentimeter at the minute. So guys, I'm just going to put this in the chat for you so you can just take it off here as well.
Thanks, Alana. What I will say actually is, as these are coming up, maybe you've got a really good idea about how you've already got a solution that tackles one of the challenges someone else has put up. We will get a chance in those breakout rooms to kind of look into this a bit more. Active Surrey people, you're going to get a chance soon to just print that screen or share that screen soon. So we'll wait for a few more ideas to come in. They're getting smaller and smaller. I love the honesties coming up out here as well. Fantastic. Staff willingness and attitude. Part of the beauty of this, hopefully some are realizing that the more times people put the same word, they appear bigger and bigger. Okay, last few seconds. Okay. So as those, if we can please print that screen so we can save it for the breakout rooms. I'm going to move you on to the next question now. So whilst obviously we're looking at challenges, I know a lot of you probably have already kind of solved some of those issues and managed to get PE, school sport and physical activity up and running. The next question you should see, if it works correctly, is can I ask you to now to press forward on your Mentimeter screen or your phone, and you should see the next question come up, which is share a success or solutions that you have implemented in your school. And we'll see a list of kind of suggestions come up. You get a few more words around to play around with now, so you can write a sentence if need be.
Whilst you're all just inputting into that section, can I just ask very quickly, just to reiterate on housekeeping for anybody that joined the meeting late, if you haven't changed your profile name to say your name and your school name, if you can do so for us, it just helps for anybody that's logged in with different contact details to what we had on the original register. We need to be able to put you into breakout rooms. So if you can edit your profile name or put your name and school name into the chat feed, that'd be really useful. Thanks.
So coming through thick and fast here, I have to start scrolling, but I can press some individual ones. We'll go through these again and share them in our breakout rooms. If you see one you really want to copy, by all means, please do write it down, or we can discuss it. There's some really good ideas coming through here.
There's Fizzy Fun on there now, Ali. Did you write that one yourself?
Well, no, it should be there more than once, if I'm honest. Some great examples happening in schools of Fizzy Fun or active bursts. Really good to see. Love that suggestion about playground equipment for each bubble. That can be really useful. I'm going to put a timer on here again, just to make sure we can capture all those last ideas, because they're still coming thick and fast. If you haven't had a chance yet, please do add. Okay, last 10 seconds. I think my brain's about to explode, all the good ideas here. If you haven't had a chance, if you can please add it now. Last chance. Fizzy Fun cards again, thank you. It's always good to see that. Right, I'm going to have to stop sharing soon. If you haven't had that last chance, please do press enter on your idea so we can save it. I will share these ideas with you after the session too. I'll make sure that Wendy sends them out because we get a copy. ASLOs, it's going to be really hard for you to share screens, but please pick down the ones that you want to talk about. And I'm now sharing with, who am I going to, Wendy? Sorry.
I'm just going to check in. Nick, are you okay to open breakout rooms yet?
We happy with that?
Yeah, ready.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. Let's go.
Okay. I think that's most people back from their breakout rooms. I was starting to get a bit lonely, wondered where you'd all gone. Yeah, I think that's majority of you back. So apologies for any tech issues that anybody experienced. It is just one of those things, unfortunately, but hopefully you found those discussions useful, and sharing best practice between yourselves is obviously one of the things that we try to achieve with these networks, which is much easier to do in person when we book a venue and provide you with food and drink and get you all talking around the table. So hopefully that worked, and obviously it's the best that we can do for the moment. So I'm going to just share just a couple of national resources and things which hopefully will kind of wrap up this part of the network, and then we will have a quick comfort break so you can grab a fresh cuppa if you want to. But just in terms of the conversations you've just been having, obviously I wasn't privy to the details, but I will be afterwards. We will share that information, as I said, on a Padlet pin board. What we want to achieve with that really is to try and get you guys talking to each other, so that if you're having issues that we can't resolve for you with any of the solutions or the national partner solutions that we're aware of, we want to be able to signpost schools to schools, because you are obviously all finding solutions on a daily basis for various things. The slide that you can see in front of you at the moment just draws your attention back to some of the resources that we shared back at in the summer term. In particular, the FAQs document that AFPE, Association for Physical Education, have produced. This is an updated version that came out in November, so it is in line with the new government guidelines. It did come out before the second lockdown, so there may be some slight discrepancies in that with regards to extracurricular clubs, but we have obviously clarified that for you, so there may well be another edition that's circulated soon. iMoves is another national organisation who are very well known for providing resources to enable you to do physical activity across the whole curriculum. So not just PE and school sport related activities, but active lessons as well. So we would highly recommend that you log on and have a look at what iMoves have got to offer. And then the final resource that I just want to share before the break is Youth Sport Trust, in partnership with Teach Active, have a number of resources around active maths and English. So for those schools who perhaps are struggling to get their pupils active other than during PE lessons, however you may be doing that, and also if you have, if you are in a school that have taken a very strict line with the restrictions, and it means that your delivery is very, very restricted, then making sure that children making sure that children are still being active while they're doing other subjects is very, very important. We'll come on to talk a little bit more about outdoor learning later on, but I just wanted to raise the awareness of these resources that you may have discussed in your breakout room. So some schools we know are already using them, but they are very good in terms of making sure that your classroom environments are as active as they can be as well. And most of these national organisations will be responding and adapting their resources to fit the restrictions that you guys are facing. The final slide before we break is just to draw your attention to safeguarding. I'm not going to go into details on this. This is very much a reference slide for you. But with everything that's happening at the moment and the adaptations that are having to be made to the delivery of PESPA, there are obviously some implications around safeguarding and things that you may want to be aware of. So there are some changes to the DBS checking system. And there are some other links on this slide that you can refer to in terms of training and also delivery for coaches who may be involved, coaches who may be coming into your school. So I would just urge you to take a look at that and just see whether there's anything relevant that you may want to add to your risk assessment policies within your schools. Okay, we are just going to break now for we're pretty much on time, so we're going to break for just under 10 minutes. If I can ask you to be back ready, we'll start again at 5 o'clock if you just want to stretch your legs and make a fresh cup of tea. See you in a bit. Welcome back, everyone. There's lots of chat going on at the moment about activity in the classroom, so I think hopefully the answers are coming in, but I just want to reiterate, I suppose, that if you don't get answers to any of your questions, queries today, please do follow up with one of the team. And again, the Padlet the Padlet link that we will share next week will hopefully enable you to share best practice across this. I think it's probably fair to say that not everything that every school is doing is going to be possible to implement in every other school, because you are operating under different rules and regulations, and that's obviously decisions that have been made by your senior leadership teams. But I think if other schools are doing things that you're not, then perhaps find out how that fits within the guidelines that you've been given, and whether or not you want to challenge that with your senior leadership teams is very much up to you. But it sounds and seems like some schools are doing an awful lot, whereas some are obviously very restricted, which is hopefully something we can help you address. Okay, I'm going to move on now to the next section of the network, where hopefully we are going to share some information, some top tips around some of the things that you can do, and certainly the things that you're being advised to do by DFE and by the national partners. So we're going to do a section now on the virtual Surrey School Games. We've got another short video for you. We've got a recording from Emily Reynolds, who is from the Youth Sport Trust. She's going to set the scene on reframing competition, and then Charlie Winter, our events officer, is going to do a little update on the virtual school games for you. So just put the video on for you now.
Hello all, my name's Emily Reynolds, National Programmes Director at the Youth Sport Trust. First of all, I'd just like to say a huge thank you from everyone at the Youth Sport Trust for your ongoing commitment to the wellbeing of children and young people, and your engagement in this instance with the Surrey team to improve the quality of physical education and school sport in order to achieve better wellbeing. I'm just going to take you through a couple of things that I hope will be of use to you as part of your virtual experience. And as I say, to kick that off, it is really important we say a thank you. These have definitely been really uncertain times, not least for you as professionals, but imagine just being 11, 12 years old, where potentially nearly a 12th of your existence on this planet has been in the world of COVID-19. What we realised through the insight that we gathered just at the start of the academic year was about 73% of teachers, when young people returned from the summer holidays and came back into school, reported that they could visibly see reduced levels of physical fitness in children and young people in their classes. We know that about 48% of schools were doing less, and potentially 4 in 10 schools doing no extracurricular activity. And many schools were indeed reducing their PE time. And all of this was before we had this lockdown number 2. So increasingly, we know schools are unsure of what they can and can't do within the boundaries of the guidance. But as the Youth Sport Trust, what we are absolutely passionate about is there are still and will continue to be opportunities, if we are innovative, to ensure that young people get to move and learn to love and fall in love with sport and physical activity, potentially for this year, but hopefully for the rest of their lives. The agility and innovation that we've seen in schools has been absolutely wonderful. And the Surrey Virtual School Games offering is a demonstration again of how local sports development staff, colleagues who work within the school sport landscape have had to be really, really agile to do things differently to hopefully support you as school practitioners to make things as easy, as innovative and as exciting as possible for children and young people. What we've seen, some of the things we've seen is bubble clubs, where maybe some of the activities that have been shared through the virtual engagement have been used to inspire activity for bubble-based provision. That could be interactivity, which is fostering that sense of belonging, enthusing the young people to represent their house, or where previously they may have represented their school, but all of which is encouraging young people to stay active. Some schools we've seen have taken on leadership, enhanced their leadership offering. Maybe only 2 or 3 previously in a class or a year group were classed as your school playground leaders. Now that's extended to have leaders within different bubbles. And a key feature of this whole pandemic period has been the growth of virtual activity and challenges. And that's seen us potentially take that step into the home environment that we've been trying to do for a long period. So that activity stimulated in school, but potentially continued and taken into the home. And one of the things that I was asked to speak about here is about how we have reframed competition and what that means. And for the last 18 months at the Youth Sport Trust, we've been talking about and trying to campaign or use the campaign message of let's reframe competition. And that was trying to move away from school against school, single measure of success, who scored the most goals, who ran the quickest time, who jumped the highest, and started to celebrate wider outcomes. That could be character-based outcomes of developing passion, developing leadership skills, demonstrating good levels of communication, showing commitment. How can we have these parallel scores that mean that we don't just celebrate potentially a single measure and we combine them? And I personally believe this period of us having to do things differently may genuinely have challenged us as educators to think about what really is important for young people and how can we weave that message into a virtual challenge. So it's not just about in a class who's done the most speed bounces. It could be about who started and completed 30 in 30 seconds. And by the end of the 3-week period is now up to maybe 45. So we begin to look at that personal best and we celebrate progress rather than a single measure. So I'd really like to encourage you all to consider, as the team in Surrey begin to expand, whether that's in the virtual world that we're currently in or their broader offer of competition, not just to think about the young person who may win the medal for your school because of the raw result, but maybe a young person that would really benefit from the provision being offered, and through using creative mechanisms to celebrate success, we can encourage and inspire more and different young people to get involved. And just as I finish my little interjection of messaging to you, I'm going to share a screen with you, which is just sharing one other opportunity in addition to the work that you may be familiar the Youth Sport Trust do around the school games and potentially why I was asked to speak. Just sharing with you an opportunity that is open for all schools to engage with, and that's about a well school movement. What we've heard in this period is that well-being now is more important than ever. And that's not just for children and young people, actually that's for you, the staff in schools, who I know have been working tirelessly throughout this period. So the Well Schools is a movement. It's an online platform and network which is established around 3 pillars: well prepared, well led, and well equipped. Well prepared is about sharing practice between schools around how do you support young people's physical literacy and physical preparation in order for them to be prepared for life. Well led is about how some and many schools are supporting the development of well-being packages, well-being provision, and I suppose a philosophy around staff well-being within their schools. And there is examples in there of different schools sharing practice of what they're doing, and you can join that conversation. And then well-equipped is more around how are schools utilising the power of sport, play, physical activity to equip young people with the life skills to go on into the new world. And again, that's probably more important now than ever. So I just wanted to share with you there the opportunity that is available for you to engage in the Well Schools network, which is just www.well-schools.org. I hope the rest of your virtual engagement in the Surrey conference goes well. Huge thank you from everybody at the Youth Sport Trust for everything that you're doing for children and young people, and have a wonderful rest of this term in advance of hopefully a wonderful festive break.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Charlie and I work with the Active Schools team to deliver the School Games programme. Following on from Emily's video where she reported that 73% of teachers are seeing that children are returning with lower levels of physical fitness, the YST also suggests that 49% of teachers have noticed new mental wellbeing issues in pupils such as anxiety and fears. You might be among those numbers as well. We know you're all doing a great job and will continue to do so, and hopefully by introducing elements of the virtual Surrey School Games, we can help you address some of these issues. I'm now going to run through some of the benefits of the programme. So reframing competition is now even more prominent in the current environment. The wider outcomes, as Emily suggests, builds upon life skills such as character development and resilience. The virtual Surrey School Games programme is not the traditional competition formats we all know of, because we know that you cannot deliver in this way currently. It provides ways to create the most valued elements of competition, but in your own school environment. Feedback from schools has always been very positive about the leadership training and the school games values, and this programme provides that, but in a virtual way. For example, there are links throughout to a value certificate which has been provided so that you can recognise and acknowledge all of the achievements, not just the best or those that are recognised as the winners. Rounders has been reframed to emphasise personal contributions to a whole team effort to help build the confidence and competence of every young person. Every school's policy approach to delivery in the current situation is different. The autumn term programme has been designed to support the recovery of young people, with each activity having its own focus on personal development. We've produced an in-depth and supportive resource, providing a variety of formats and activity ideas to create a positive and active environment in your own school. Those who have bubble leaders or have recently had the opportunity to train up your sport organiser squads, you can utilise these to support peer delivery of the virtual Surrey School Games. You can change and adapt the activities using the STEPS principle to make it work with the time, the space, the equipment, numbers and abilities of the young people that you have with you. For example, with athletics, attempting one discipline at a time, one per day, one per week, during PE lessons or during break times. If you've pledged, you may have pledged to the physically active learning in Surrey schools, using ideas out of this in active bursts, active breaks, or active lessons. Some examples are shown on the slide. The selected activities have all been to draw out key life skills such as communication, creativity, collaboration, resilience, self-confidence and cooperation, all transferable skills that are needed throughout life that can be applied to other areas of the curriculum. Each school, their setup and young person is different in the approach, in your ability, and in levels of physical activity. The activities are adaptable to the time, space, or equipment you have and can be delivered to fit into your school timetable and physical environment. Have a look at the resources, and if you want support to implement activities or any ideas, then please do get in touch with your active school officer or the active.schools@surreycc.gov.uk account. So looking ahead to the spring term, we'd all love to have competition available for us. However, we need to do it in consultation and following the schools and government guidance. The virtual support will be available through your districts, and then there will be a carousel of skills and drills, activities and personal best challenges. So again, if you need any support, whether you want to feedback or share best practice, then please do get in touch with the Active Schools team. I'll pass you back over to Wendy, who will be able to tell you more about the 7 top tips for PESPA.
Thanks, Charlie. So as Charlie said, the school games resources are out there. The spring term resources are being worked up. So if you want to get involved in that and use that in your schools, but you're struggling to process it all, then please do get in touch with the team. They're there to support you, and they are willing and wanting to do so. Okay, so as I mentioned at the beginning of the session, a new document that has just recently been published, endorsed by DFE. This has come out through Active Partnerships, which is obviously the network that Active Surrey are part of, and national organisations, AFP and Youth Sport Trust. And these guidelines are essentially 7 top tips for PESPA, but specifically linked to the PE and sports premium funding and the criteria within those. So what we're going to do for the last part of the session is run through each of those top tips and just briefly touch on some of the solutions and the support available. We've got various colleagues who are going to come in and talk about certain sections. There's quite a lot of information to digest. I'm not going to necessarily read everything that's on these slides. This is basically just a breakdown of the document, which we will circulate to you. So we're just going to pick up on the key points and the solutions that come with them. So the first one is around sustainability, and we recognise obviously that it's very difficult for you to bring in external providers at the moment, but one of the things that has always been a current debate, one of the things that's always been debated about the PE and Sports Premium Funding is how sustainable is it when you are bringing in external coaches to replace teachers to deliver PE, school sport, physical activity. Bringing in coaches has obviously been something that has been talked about a lot, and it's something that you can do, you are allowed to do, and they do have a place and they can upskill staff. But at the moment, obviously, there could be some restrictions on that. So where does that leave your staff, your staffing team in terms of being able to continue to deliver PESPA if you can't bring in those externally qualified personnel that you've relied on heavily in the past? So that links in obviously naturally with teachers training. We've got a very comprehensive teachers training program. I say very comprehensive, it is comprehensive. It's restricted in that there are certain courses that we haven't been able to run this year, and a lot of them have had to move to virtual training, but it is still there to support you. And we would very much urge you to look at spending your some of your funding on teachers training at this time. My colleague Laura is going to cover teachers training in a little bit more detail later on, so I'm not going to say any more on that. I am just going to move on briefly to talk about whole school improvement and the impact of PESPA on wider school priorities, which we talked about at the very beginning of this network. And I think we all know the benefits of that. We have got a campaign that most of you hopefully are familiar with called PALS, Physically Active Learning in Surrey Schools. And I'm just going to hand over briefly to Ali, who's just going to talk a little bit about PALS for you.
It's always one person takes too long to unmute, isn't there? And that's me today. So thanks for the introduction, Wendy. I have the pleasure of leading on our PALS campaign. I've just added the repledge link in the comments if you've had a chance to have a look at it. Don't worry if you don't yet. PALS was created to support Surrey schools tackle the negative effects of sedentary behaviour. From a young age, children love to move. I think we know this. However, we also know that not everyone has a positive experience of sport and physical activity. I'm sure this resonates with some of you in the room. It's no doubt even harder right now to foster those positive experiences with all the restrictions currently in place. So PALS has been formed to help you establish the link between moving more and better engagement in terms of confidence, enjoyment, and also learning. We've tried our best to make it as easy as possible to get involved, which you can do so for free by pledging or repledging via the link or visiting our website. Through PALS, we offer support, signposts, and share resources created to make it easier for you to embed an active school approach. One of the new creations I've been working on recently is something called our desk size poster, which I think one of the people who helped me get the photos has already mentioned in the solutions. I'll give you a bit of information about that later. It refers to activities that can be performed within the classroom at the children's desks or tables. Exercises can be completed on your seat, on your feet, or sometimes both ways. We also encourage teachers to role model exercises too. So kind of without further ado, I don't know about you, but I've been sitting too much, so I'm going to stand up now. And I'd encourage you to join me on this as we take part in a lateral stretch. So sitting or standing upright, I choose to stand upright. Please place your right hand on your hip. Raise your left arm straight up in the air and slightly over your head. Now, bending at the waist, lean to the right, aiming to keep your left arm touching your ear. That's it. Oh, it's a good stretch, isn't it? Now we're going to repeat another side. So left hand, left hip, arm in the air. I've got a ceiling in the way here, but it doesn't matter. Stretching over. Get an even better stretch if I touch my ear. Okay, repeat that a few times as I get back towards my seat, if that's okay. Hopefully you'll feel the benefit, not just in your body, but in your brains too. I can see Charlie getting involved. Well done, Charlie. So well done for getting involved. Reaping the benefits of physical activity really doesn't need to be very hard. So without further ado, hopefully you can have a chance to look at the information on the slides. I would really encourage you, even if you have pledged already to PALS, to repledge. We've got some new resources, and as you can see, our umbrella, as we like to refer to it, has some new areas where we're really trying to support you and provide those best practice and case studies. I'd now like to hand over to Louise Edwards. Louise is the Outdoor Learning and Development Manager for Surrey Outdoor Learning. So Louise, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Ali. Hi, everyone. My name's Louise. I manage Surrey County Council's Outdoor Learning Service. Really lovely to see so many of you this afternoon. It's absolutely amazing to see outdoor learning even flagged as one of the 7 recommended focus areas. That's like music to my ears, because it means I can have another opportunity to talk about the amazing benefits of outdoor learning, which I could do a lot. For those of you that know me, you know that's pretty much all I talk about. It's really nice to see also that the words outdoor learning have been used here rather than outdoor adventurous activity, or OAA, which is a much more specific thing, which appears in the Key Stage 2 PE national curriculum. So OAA, fantastic, but it's quite a tight remit, whereas outdoor learning relates to all learning that takes place outside in a natural environment, including your school grounds. So it's really great to see that that's recognised here in terms of the language that's being used. Just a little update, currently DFE guidance says absolutely that you can teach your children, and recommends that you teach your children more and more in your outside space, but you can also use local outdoor space. So if your school grounds aren't particularly fantastic, then it's a brilliant opportunity to check out what's in your local area, whether that's a local park or woodland or whatever it is. But importantly for us, local outdoor space also includes outdoor learning centres like ours that are very close to where our schools are. So we've seen during the whole period, including now, local schools visiting our outdoor learning centres for day visits to take part in really engaging and exciting activities. Surrey Outdoor Learning and Development also has an outreach offer where we go into schools and deliver this too. My contact details are on the slide that you're looking at now. So because I don't have very much time right now, if you want any more information on any of this, please just drop me an email and I can talk a bit more about it. In terms of top tips and advice for doing more outdoor learning, I've got a couple for you. One is that I'd strongly recommend using this opportunity to do an audit in your school of what outdoor learning is actually taking place. Because you might be surprised that actually quite a lot more is happening than you realised. The audit should include how you are using your school grounds currently, but more importantly, what is the confidence and skill level of your teacher colleagues about using outdoor learning? Because if that's a problem, then that's something that can really easily be addressed and might make a huge difference to the amount of outdoor learning that's taking place. So a simple audit, by the way, I'm loving all the love for High Ashurst in the chat, really good stuff. So a really simple audit of what's currently happening and how people feel about it and what they might need to do a bit more would be a really good thing to do. I'd encourage everyone to use this COVID opportunity to have a really fresh look at your school grounds and how they are used. If you need a bit of help with that, me or my team will be really happy to come in and do a visit and a walk and a talk around your school grounds to think about ways in which they could be used a bit more creatively. Sometimes just having a new pair of eyes look at that space can open up all sorts of opportunities. I'm a big fan of creating outdoor learning zones in your school grounds. And for me, having areas which are set up for teaching rather than being a teaching and play area is a really cool thing to do. So that might be as simple as having a fenced off or cordoned off area. And in that area, you have natural seating, tree stumps, whatever it is that you can lay your hands on, fixing whiteboards to fences and trees and creating literally an outdoor classroom space. Really inexpensive to do, but it does two things. As soon as you go into that area with your children, they are ready to learn because it's set up as a proper learning space. And it also helps your teacher colleagues feel a bit familiar and a bit more confident about teaching in that space, because they've got some of the tools around them that enables them to do that. There's so much you can do in your school grounds, and I know I'm short on time here, so I'm just going to whiz through. So I hope lots of you are developing your growing areas. So growing, absolutely amazing, active learning activity. That can be veg, that can be flowers, that can be a herb garden, whatever it is. Orienteering and scavenger hunts around your school grounds, literally getting your children to explore every nook and cranny of your school grounds. There's so much you can do with that. You can do amazing woodland type activities. You don't need a woodland to do that. And you don't need to be a highly qualified forest schools practitioner to do that either. Don't even get me on that, because I might start ranting a little bit. But just by having some basic shelter building equipment, every school with a little bit of input can do some brilliant fire lighting and cooking over the fire. There's so much you can do with that. Team tasks, problem solving tasks, absolutely brilliant. I would imagine that most of you have equipment in your PE cupboards that are brilliant for doing great team and problem solving tasks. So without spending too much money or putting too much effort in, there's already so much that you can do in your school ground. So if you think that they deserve a fresh look here, I'd strongly advise doing that. CPD, of course, is going to be key to getting this embedded and teachers feeling confident about this across the school. That's something that we can help with. Our CPD is very bespoke. We can deliver orienteering training, we can deliver OAA training, we can deliver national curriculum lesson training, where you literally teach every national curriculum subject in your school grounds. So CPD, really important. So drop me an email if that's something you might be interested in. And then I guess the final top tip is around making sure that the resources are in place to make this as easy and accessible as possible to do. So that might be creating a lesson plan resource that's full of laminated lesson plan ideas for ways in which you can learn outdoors. It might be having a bit more storage in your school grounds, just by having a couple of sheds that store all the equipment that you need can make a huge difference. The children being prepared to learn outdoors, whatever the weather. Waterproofs, wellies and woolly hats should be as normal as PE kit, in my view. So that just getting the children prepared from that point of view is a really cool thing to do. So I'm just going to finish on the fact that COVID has absolutely no doubt presented us with more opportunity than ever to embrace and develop your outdoor learning curriculum, to use your outside space and nearby space a bit more. And I'd really urge you to do that. The health and well-being benefits of learning outdoors, that there's so much compelling evidence about this. And I know that I don't need to tell you guys about it. Everyone knows it. So if this is something that you've been trying to do for a long time, now is the time to really go for it and take that opportunity. And if you need a bit of help with any of it, just drop me an email.
Thanks, Lou. That's really great. A lot of love for you and for High Ashurst in the chat there. So and also some best practice sharing, which is really useful actually, for you to carry on doing that throughout this session. Just letting other schools know if you are using these solutions already, because if other schools aren't, then they know they can then get in touch with you or with people like Louise, who can come in and facilitate some of these things. Okay, so going to move on now to the next section of top tips. Just in terms of active travel, this is a bit of a hot topic at the moment. It's certainly a real focus area for Surrey County Council at the moment, but not necessarily the easiest thing to implement. But again, I think this might be one of those things that has the travelling to school has active travel to school, sorry, has increased significantly during this COVID period, because obviously with parents working from home, they perhaps have a little bit more time, and walking, cycling, scooting to school is becoming more and more popular. And the opportunities for schools to build on this moving forward are really there now. So there's various solutions to this, and again, it forms part of our PALS campaign, which Ali obviously talked to you about a little bit earlier. There are some obvious active travel schemes that are out there that some schools currently use, like WOW Travel. And as I say, it's an area that Surrey County Council are really looking into at the moment. And so I think there's going to be a lot more movement in this particular area. But again, there are solutions, there are ideas there around active travel. And again, we would encourage schools to share best practice on that, so that if other schools want to implement this, then they can do so. Okay, the next top tip is around ensuring high quality PE provision. And I'm not going to say anything else on this because it's not my area of expertise, but we have got some very, very expert consultants on the call with us today. So I'm going to hand over to Laura, who's going to introduce this section.
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura, the Workforce Lead at Active Surrey, and I head up our teacher training programme. As has already been flagged up several times within today's session, increasing staff confidence and competence is essential to delivering high quality PE in school sport, and it should be a fundamental part of your PESPA delivery. Active Surrey have offered a staff PE in school sport training programme for a number of years now, and we continue to work with quality assured providers to support the delivery of high quality PE within your schools. Our programme this year, it's very much a virtual offer, so it is quite different to what we've offered previously, but it does still include courses, workshops, and some free webinars from the likes of iMoves, Teach Active, Create Development, plus new courses are added as and when they're finalised. So please do keep checking the Active Surrey website and our booking pages to see what courses we have on offer. For those of you who are interested in Create Development and their unique child-centred schemes of work, including Real Play and the other real solutions, they are actually offering a free Find Out More webinar next week. So we'll send you details of that webinar after today's session. But if Create Development is something that you want to find out more about, then please do log into that webinar. And then this year, we're really excited to have formed a new relationship with both St Mary's University and Kingston University to offer additional specialised training and support to Surrey schools. This includes the AFP Level 5 in Primary PE Specialism, which we have 19 candidates currently attending. An NQT support programme, which is advertised there on the screen, which starts in January. And also a whole host of bespoke support. So I'd really like to take this opportunity to hand over to Greg Dreyer from Kingston University and then on to Julie from St Mary's, just to introduce themselves and give a brief overview of the type of support they can provide to your schools. So hopefully, Greg, you're there. Greg?
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, I can. It worked. Hi, Greg.
Hiya. No need to be so surprised, Laura. Evening, everybody, and thank you for giving us some time on your very packed agenda. It's been fascinating listening to everything that's going on across Active Surrey. So yeah, by way of introduction, as Laura said, my name's Greg Dreyer, and as is written in my screen, because I duly obliged by changing and making my name clear, so hopefully you can see that. And I'm the director of the Centre for PE Sport and Activity that sits in the School of Education at Kingston. The mission of our centre is to make PE, sport and activity fantastic for all children by aligning excellent teaching, research and practice. So that's where we're coming from. Away from university, I'm also the co-founder of a new app called MyMove, and that supports pretty much everything that you're talking about this evening. So I'm really hoping that over time you'll find out a lot more about that and hopefully use that to support your work. At CPs, we're really excited to be part of what's a pretty innovative partnership between Julie St Mary's, me and my team, and all of you and the Active Surrey team. Our work at university is irrelevant if it's too divorced from what you're doing in school. And I'll probably also argue that your work could also be misguided if it's too divorced from academic work and research. We often tell our trainees that you wouldn't expect any other professionals like doctors not to be up to date with latest thinking, evidence and research in their fields. And I think the same should apply and does apply often with teaching. We're hoping that by working jointly in the spirit of collaboration, we'll be able to support you in working towards really exceptional and inclusive PE, sport and activity. And I really want to emphasise that spirit of collaboration. The whole idea behind this partnership is really not that we come and work with you to tell you what to do. It's very much that we sit beside you, we sit with you. Sometimes we will be your friend, sometimes we'll be your critical friend, but we'll be there to bounce ideas off, to work through your agenda. And as Laura mentioned, we've actually already started on Monday. It was a real pleasure working with the group on some of people, I believe, are on this call as well, as we started the 7 days of the FP Level 5 course. And that's happening once a month through to the summer, the next 6 days. So it's not too late if anybody in your school does want to enrol. I'm sure Laura will happily pass on the details. And because a couple of people weren't able to make Monday's session, just because it was the first session, we're going to just run a catch up before the next session that's in mid-December. So it really isn't too late and you will be able to catch up. So what's the offer for you that you could take advantage of? Well, as you can see on the slide, you've got the opportunity to buy us in, I guess, for any unit of time. The whole offer has been based on flexibility and to be as user-friendly as possible. So you can buy us in for a series of 2-hour sessions or a couple of days or a couple of half days. And what buying in means depends on what sort of constraints we're working under. We would love to come into your schools. Both Julia and I, with our university hats on, are beginning to visit schools, but we're also doing a lot online. So we're really flexible how we work with you. We can have an online chat. We can work through issues that you want to advice on. All the research around professional development shows that ongoing, often small units, small time, small touch points of professional development are actually much, much more impactful than attending a one-day course. Nice as they are, and it's nice to network, and it's obviously nice often to get to a nice buffet for a change, but the impact on the children is often much greater if it's ongoing. And it's bespoke. It's really about you telling us what is it you want to work for. You can also team up with a cluster of schools if you wanted to, I guess, share the course, share the cost, or if you've got particular things that you want to work on in common. And again, Laura will probably be able to convene that. If you put in a request to work on a certain theme, she'll probably be able to say, oh, there's a couple of other schools who want the same thing. So the sort of things that we might work on might be, how do you align the ethos of school sport to the ethos of your curriculum? Or how do you make the Daily Mile a great experience for all children? As well as the really meaty stuff around Ofsted 3 Eyes when it comes to PE. What are your intentions? How do you implement that? And how do you measure impact? And I don't think I'm divulging anything that was top secret, and it's probably very common. In fact, every primary school I've worked with says pretty much a similar thing, that on Monday, pretty much everyone said assessment was, let's just say, an area for development. I think that's putting it diplomatically. So certainly, and without that assessment piece, then how on earth do you manage impact? And, we're not about necessarily getting you Ofsted ready. We're not Ofsted consultants. But if we do a good job in our work, you'll certainly be more than ready as and when Ofsted come in. But that isn't really the primary focus of the consultancy. It's really about making sure and supporting you in making sure your PE is as good as possible. We're also available for whole staff training days, whether that be activity specific, whether it be on how to teach really good gymnastics, that's fine. If we're allowed in, we're more than happy to come in and work with specific members of staff or cohorts of staff by observing lessons, team teaching lessons, and we're more than happy, both Julia and myself are more than happy to lead lessons, and for people to observe us. If nothing else, you might see how not to do it, or you might just pick up some great gems and tips and see, well, what is it they're banging on about. But I'd like to think that the lessons would be half decent. So we're really at your disposal. If you want to sort of get a sneak preview of what we're about, then if you want to check out My Move, then you go to mymoveapp.com. My Move is spelled M-I-M-O-V-E app.com. You can follow me on Twitter, Greg_Dreyer, or Julie is at Jules_CP. And on that note, I'll hand over to at Jules_CP. So over to you, Julie.
Thank you, Greg. It's always nice to go after Greg because he's kind of filled out the whole picture and I don't have to say much now. Just to let you know that listening in on the chat room that I was there, and I said it there and then, but I'll say it across the whole board now. I want you all to remember that you are doing an amazing job and to never feel that you're not quite doing the right thing, because part of our role with Greg and I is to actually ask you to say, what is your role? You are a lead. And to be honest, unless somebody directs us exactly what a prime PE teacher or somebody teaching PE is, you do what you can. So the aspect that's up on the slide for the moment about the NQT PE support, that's something I already do a crossover in Richmond and Kingston. And it was something that I found really, really enlightening, that there are some people who arrive into primary teaching who've had 4 hours of training of PE. Now, with 4 hours of training, to be honest, if I had to go in and teach maths with 4 hours of training, I'd be absolutely lost. And then we talk about confidence and competence. So in these sessions, we will work with those of you who want to come, or those of you who send your trainees, NQTs to us, and they're flexible. So the idea is, how do we work in PE and differentiate? What we do is pick up the ideas that we have, but also see what you do in your school situation for maths or for science. What do you do to differentiate? There's so many things we can work with, and it's working into your school situation, okay? Inclusive approach to teaching and learning. Those of you who have been through St Mary's or have come across me before, that is actually one of my whole firm values, is that we need to make sure that children can access learning. And then to be able to access learning, we need to work out, well, what is learning and how do we show progress in PE? And there are so many, again, windows that we can open up and basically talk about, what do you need to do? Do you have to play team sports? Can we do all the other things that have been discussed? So both Greg and I are very keen on developing the education of PE, because PE is often seen as just the physical. So if we can get children being creative, we've just heard about learning outdoors. That is certainly something we've been doing. If children are outdoors breathing this beautiful fresh air and getting a bit of a run around, if that's what people want to call it, that's okay, but actually let's get them learning at the same time. So bringing in that E. I would also say that when Greg said about sitting beside you, that is totally our role, is to be there, to listen, to see what your school needs or what your staff needs are. And we're open to work with you in whatever form that will suit. So previously I've worked with some schools in Woking, and I did some twilights, and we were trying to work with movement, so gymnastics and dance. Having done the twilights, I then came in and taught some of the year groups. I taught a year 2 and a year 6 class, and the teachers sat and watched that. And then they taught and team taught with me, and eventually they taught and I observed and gave some amazing feedback. And then we looked at how are we tracking learning. So that's the type of thing we can bring in for you. I would say, don't trouble yourselves about things that actually are out of your control at the moment. But there are steps we can take to make things a bit more supportive for you. So be in touch with Laura and do as Greg said. What do you want? How do you want it? And we'll see what we can do.
Thank you, Julie and Greg and Laura. That was fantastic. So this is a new service. This is a new partnership that we're rolling out this year, and we genuinely believe that it's a service that schools need and hopefully want. And we wanted you to kind of know who the consultants are. So we wanted to bring Greg and Julie in today so that you know who they are and you know what they're about. And I think that's really, really important in terms of the services that they can offer and the types of people that they are. They're, as you can see, really lovely people, both of them. So do liaise with Laura over teachers training needs. There's a huge amount that we can do. There's a lot that we can pull together. There's many different ways in which we can provide the training, working with Greg and Julie. So whatever your needs are, we hopefully will be able to meet them between us. Okay, we're moving on to the last few slides now. We're going to wrap up hopefully on time. I've amazed myself that I've gotten this far without really mentioning the membership, but I am going to mention it now because obviously there are discounts associated with training costs, etc. if you are a member school. Now, I'm not going to go on about this for very long at all because the majority of you that are on the network today are member schools. There are a handful of you that aren't, and it's not too late to convert and to sign up as members for this academic year. So if you are interested in that, then obviously you can get in touch with us afterwards. But the one thing, there's 2 dates I want to draw your attention to on that slide. The Spring Term Network, which is currently scheduled for Tuesday, the 9th of March, and also the new PE Leads workshop that we're doing on Thursday, the 26th of November, just in case anybody hasn't seen those and are interested in attending. And obviously we hope to see all of you back at the Spring Term Network. One of the things that we're going to put on the Padlet link is the timing of that network. We still can't quite work out what's the best time to run these networks. This might be a little bit too late for some of you. So again, we'll be asking for some feedback as to what time we run that network in the spring on the 9th of March. The date won't change, but we'll change the time if there is a time that suits others better. And by all means, throw your preferences into the chat feed as well. The last 2 top tips around PESPA. The first one is around innovation. And I think lots of people that have spoken to you today have obviously said thank you and well done for managing and coping through what has been a really, really difficult period for schools. And during lockdown number 1, and probably now again during lockdown number 2, we've all had to come up with new ways of working and new ways of providing services and resources. And that's one of the things that the national partners are really promoting that we continue to do. So come up with innovative ways of continuing to deliver. I'm just going to cover a bit on school swimming, and then I'm going to hand you over to Abs, who is going to talk to you about our school sport organiser squad training, which is basically our innovative way of still being able to offer young leaders training. Most of you have been involved in sports crew training before, but Abs and the team came up with a virtual offer to fit the current landscape. So she'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. We just want to finish this slide, just talk about swimming for a moment, because this is obviously included within the resource as well. Swimming was massively impacted in the spring and summer terms last year. So we know that an awful lot of young people have missed out on their swimming provision within school. So again, a real drive for schools to use their PE and sports premium funding for top-up swimming. Just a reminder that you can't use it for national curriculum swimming lessons because that needs to come out of your core budget, but it can be used for top-up swimming. There is some guidance that has come out that we will circulate for school swimming and return to swim guidance specifically for schools. So we'll circulate those with you. And I think it's probably likely that we'll cover swimming in a little bit more detail at the Spring Term Network, because I think schools are probably going to want to share a bit of best practice around this particular area as well. Okay, so I'm just going to hand over to Abs then to talk you through a little bit about sports organiser squad training.
Thank you, Wendy. So yeah, I'm Abigail and I lead on the sport organiser squad training, as Wendy said. Many of you who are on the call, I think, have Access Sports crew training, which we've been running for around 4 or 5 years now. So what we've done is we've planned a new training, which is very, very much COVID friendly and fits in with the current guidelines. So we've called it Sport Organiser Squad Training, and it's worth noting that this will be our training, the only sports leadership training that we'll be delivering until July, well, for the next academic year, really. So there won't be any more sports crew training for this academic year. So the way it works is it's a 3-hour training session. We have put year 5 and 6 there, but it's worth noting, and someone did actually mention it during the Mentimeter task at the beginning, there is an option to train up different year groups. So we've suggested year 5 or 6, but we know that some schools are doing year 3, 4, 5 and 6 as well. So the main outcome of the training is basically to give your students the knowledge and the confidence to support with delivering intra-school competition based within your school. There's a couple of options. We've had about 30 schools sign up so far, a mixture of virtual and face-to-face. So there's an option to bring a member of the Active Surrey staff into your school. And we are still currently doing that, even in this second lockdown. Or there's an option to buy the virtual resources, which is actually proving more popular at the moment. I think it's about a 70-30 split. So in terms of what you'll receive with the virtual resources, you'll receive links to YouTube, and on YouTube there will be webinars for different modules. There's 4 modules, all of those modules have been filmed by a member of the Active Surrey team. You'll receive a squadron leader guide, so that's what we're calling it, and that's basically a teacher guide to delivering the training, along with all the resources, the bibs and the booklets, so fairly similar to Sports Crew in that way. In terms of the content, we've taken the best bits of Sports Crew. So you'll see the first bullet point there, recognising the qualities of a good leader, focusing on personal best challenges. But like I said, the main focus and the main outcome is teaching your young people and giving them the confidence and knowledge to learn different types of competition formats to deliver intra-school competition within your school. Thanks, Wendy.
Thanks. Just looking in the chat feed. Julie, I'm not sure if you're still there, if you did still want to come back in and say anything else, but if you pop up on my screen, I'll know that you do. There you are.
Hello, thanks, Wendy. I did forget, and I promised myself I wouldn't, and so I'm feeling a bit upset about that. I wanted to just say that when we come and work with you, if that's going to be the case, and if not, we like to work with the person. We're not looking for anyone for their performance, for their level of understanding. It's more about my value again of inclusion, but of care as well. So we like to see when we teach the child and what they can do and what they're interested in, and that's exactly our philosophy, that we're coming in to be with you. So keep your positivity, believe in yourselves, and we're not coming to do Olympic gym or see who can run the fastest. That's never going to be my situation. It's what would you like to do and how can we help you? Okay, thanks, Wendy.
No problem. Okay, so we are literally on the last slide. So just following on from the Sport Organiser Squad training, if there's any inquiries about that, then obviously you know how to get in touch with the team. I'm really proud of what the team came up with that. It took an awful lot of work, and I think the resources and all the videos and everything that have been put together to make it a virtual offer and a face-to-face offer is really impressive, and it connects very well with the Virtual School Games programme. So I know that you've had those resources. I know that you probably know that those initiatives are available. If you don't have the time to sit and go through them to understand how to implement it in your school, again, get in touch with the team, because that's what they can do to support wise. That's what they can do for you at the moment. They are very much missing being out doing delivery, training the leaders face to face, doing events and things like that. So being able to support you to do it is the next best thing for us at the moment. Okay, so this is the last slide. I know I sound like a stuck record when I say this, but Active Surrey have got a lot of solutions and we can provide a lot of support, but we don't have all of the answers. But we do work with a lot of partners, some of whom you've heard from today, some of them are national partners. Whatever you need, whatever support needs you have got over the next, for the rest of this term and probably well into the spring term as well. If you're not finding it to be able to, if you're not finding the solution to be able to do what you want to do, then please do get in touch with us and we will do our very best to kind of resolve your issues so that you can continue to provide as much PESPA for young people as possible. We will follow up next week with the presentation, with the recording and also the Padlet link that I keep talking about. So please do continue to share best practice with each other. Just looking at the chat feed that's going on whilst we've been talking throughout for the last sort of 2 hours or so, there's loads of best practice being shared. And I think it's really, really useful. And we always feel that best practice from schools who are actually doing it is sometimes better than any information that we can provide because it's real life examples that are actually working. So that brings us to the end of the network. I am shocked but slightly impressed at our impeccable timekeeping. So big thank you to the team and to everybody who has inputted into today's session. We will be online for a couple more minutes if people want to come off camera and have any kind of conversations or anything like that. You can carry on the chat feed for a bit if you want to. We'll just see. And as you guys drop out, we'll then close the session, but we'll leave it running for a few more minutes. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you found it useful. Apologies if it's information overload, but it's all very important stuff at the moment. Thanks very much.